Hi everyone, it's Rio Cloudseek. In today's session, we're focusing on a major announcement when it comes to Microsoft Ignite, especially in the security space, being Security Copilot. Now, Security Copilot for about a year now hasn't been included in any enterprise or business-led subscriptions. You've had to provision an Azure subscription and provision a security compute unit, which is the compute capacity that powers the workloads in the Security Copilot dashboard. And how that was built through ACR, being Azure consumption revenue. At about one SEU was around $4 per hour. However, with a minimum requirement of 3 SEUs to be provisioned at any given time to make the most out of Security Copilot. And you can potentially see how that could aggregate over a year, over several years, in relation to cost. It wasn't a cheap solution, in other words. Now, with the inclusion of it being in E5 for not only net new customers but also existing customers, this is going to not only save businesses a whole load of money, but also help enhance their existing MDDR deployments or internal SOC analysts. So what I mean by that is this integration brings AI-powered security capabilities directly into your existing Microsoft 365 practice and environment and helps you not only detect but also investigate and respond to threats faster and more effectively. Now, this rollout begins today, being November the 18th, 2025, and you will receive a 30-day advance notification before any activation of Security Copilot in your organization happens. For any existing customers, of course, you'll already have the compute capacity provisioned in Azure. Therefore, the recommendation is either to stick with the SEUs if you prefer the pre-provision capacity over the inclusion capacity. And we'll look at the differences in a second. However, like I said, with pre-provision capacity, it is around $4 indicative per SEU per hour with a minimum recommendation of 3 SEUs to power Security Copilot and any of the agentic agents. Whereas the inclusion of Security Copilot in E5 is not necessarily a one-off cost, and more of an OPEX cost with E5, where you're paying either monthly on a per annum or a monthly rolling. Now, customers with E5 will receive around 400 SEUs per month for every 1,000 paid user licenses, and up to 10,000 SEUs per month at no extra charge. And this allocation will scale proportionally for organizations with fewer than 1,000 licenses. It works out to be, if you have 100 paid for E5 licenses in your organization, around 35 to 40 SEUs per month. Now, the question typically would be, can you carry over these SEUs from month to month? The answer is no. Can you explicitly opt out before Microsoft roll you into Security Copilot? Not at this moment. And this is all answered in the FAQs in the Microsoft documentation I'm showing you today. Now, if we scroll down slightly more, is information on when will Security Copilot inclusion in E5 be available. Like I said, today. What capacity is included? Around 400 SEUs per 1,000 paid seats at no additional cost. And like I said, it will proportionally break down as per the amount of licensed users or heads you've got in your organization. So if you were an organization of 400, then you would get indicatively 160 SEUs per month. Now, we already demystified this in some degree. What is a security compute unit? It's a unit of measure for compute power to run the Security Copilot workloads, whether or not that be the built-in or embedded AI capabilities, or even the agentic agents you can now use through partner organizations or via Microsoft themselves. Now, will they provide SEUs for each month be usable across multiple workspaces? Yes, whether or not that be Entra ID, Microsoft Defender XDR, Microsoft Purview, any of the private solutions, it's available. Is there an example of SEU consumption under current provision versus inclusion models, right? So when I said previously we had to provision an Azure subscription, we had to bill through the ACR consumption model, and for each SEU it was around indicatively $4 per hour. That was billed through the current provision model, right? Where if you were to, let's say, provision 5 SEUs for each hour, under your current billing model and you were to execute a prompt, right, within the first hour, and that prompt consumed 3 SEUs, and then in the second hour consume 0.5 SEUs in the second hour, that would equate to the total usage being 3.5 SEUs across 2 hours. However, because the billing model is based on provision capacity, i.e. you've purchased it up front, the customer is charged for 5 SEUs every hour, resulting in 10 SEUs billed for the 2 hours, right? Because of course you've used 2 hours and you pre-provisioned 5 SEUs per hour. Now with the inclusion model, this is more, let's say, a pot. It's a quota, right? Where we may have 4 SEUs per 1,000 user licenses, but there's no hourly provision capacity. Instead, right, the same 2 scenarios would deduct 3.5 SEUs from your monthly pot, your allocation, right? So you have 4 SEUs, you've now consumed 3.5 SEUs. So you have however many SEUs left, right? Now, the SEUs will reset each month, but they won't roll over as per. How did the customer prepare for their organisation? Once more, you will start to receive policy tips in your organisational tenant. There is no Azure subscription needed or required, right? Because this is now a no-cost service as part of your E5 license, whereas previously you had to have some sort of billing mechanism. That billing mechanism was Azure through the pre-provisioned plan. There is a option to opt into overage. Overage is around indicative $6 per hour over the current allocation you would typically have via your E5, which of course then requires an Azure subscription. If you were to upgrade to E3 to E5, or upgrade from E3 to E5, yep, no setup needed. You'll just automatically be enrolled into Security Copilot. No additional cost. As I said, customers have an option to scale beyond the allocated amount of $6 for each SEU as a pay-as-you-go basis, but of course you would require an Azure subscription. If we scroll down further, what isn't covered part of this allocation, there's always a caveat, right? What isn't covered? Central data lake, right? For long-term retention of your operational and security data. Not only that, being able to convert that hot data into cold tier, so you're not charged as much. Of course, for long-term retention, if you want to look at cost savings and being able to leverage the likes of Jupyter notebooks and SQL over your existing data, and as part of Microsoft Fabric, then you may or may not need Sentinel Data Lake. So please take that into consideration when looking at the E5 versus kind of standalone option. Non-agentic data security investigation experience in Microsoft Purview. So yeah, data security investigations. However, that's built through a separate SEU allocation pot anyway. So of course, that's not going to be included as part of this license. Charged for Azure Logic Apps, partner built agent license, paid through Security Store, and some other agents. Right. To be honest, the core capabilities, i.e. what capabilities are included, are pretty much there, right? Which is the ability to leverage natural language across not only your estate, but other partner ecosystems, and of course Microsoft Graph is all available for you to use in the E5 license. What can customers do with Security Copilot? Of course, saves you time, alleviates the mundane tasks, and allows you to prioritize other tasks. Can you track the usage? And this is all just general consensus around Security Copilot. Now, how can I track my usage? Yes, there's a reporting mechanism. If you've seen any of my previous Security Copilot videos, you will know there's a reporting pane there to view how much SEUs you've got, how many SEUs you've used, how many are currently available. What else have we got here? For MSPs, similarly, right? If you're provisioning pre-provisioned capacity through Azure plans, just revert that to E5 if they have E5. Same principle applies. From 18th onwards, this will start to kick in. And can my organisations elect to disable Security Copilot at some point in time? All right, not yet. Like I said, this has just been announced. I thought I'd get it out there to the wider community. Feel free to look through this documentation. That's all I've done is I've just read through it to you guys. But of course, it's always good there to make everyone aware. All right, thank you.